Number two, strengthening believers. Strengthening believers. The personal benefits of being intellectually engaged with your faith are huge. Let me mention 3 ways in which it will strengthen you as a Christian. First of all, knowing why you believe, as well as what you believe, will make you more confident in sharing your faith with others. I see this happen all the time on the university campuses where I have a public debate with a non-Christian professor. I frequently participate in debates with university professors on topics like, does God exist? Did Jesus rise from the dead? Christianity versus humanism, and so forth. And you know what? I find that most of these professors, though they may be very brilliant in their narrow area of specialization, are almost clueless when it comes to the evidence for Christianity. What I find is that the Christian position in these debates usually comes out so far ahead that the non-believing students on campus often complain that the whole event was a setup, designed or staged to make the non-Christian position look bad. In fact, we try to get the best opponents that we can, and they're often picked by the atheist club on campus. By contrast, Christian students come away from these events with their heads held high, proud to be Christians. One Canadian student remarked to me following a debate, "I can't wait to go out and share my faith in Christ." People who are not trained in the defense of the faith are often afraid to speak out for Christ or to share their faith out of fear that someone will ask them a question. But if you know the answers, then you're not afraid to go into the lion's den. In fact, you'll enjoy it. Being intellectually equipped will help to make you a bold and fearless witness for Jesus Christ. Secondly, having good reasons for what you believe can also help you to keep your faith in times of doubt and struggle. Prior to my oral examinations in theology at the University of Munich, Jan and I spent the summer in Berlin in an apartment where I was preparing for my exams. I had been preparing for these exams for over a year and had a stack of notes about a foot high, which I had virtually memorized, and was reviewing every day in anticipation of these exams. During our time in Berlin, we had the pleasure of entertaining Ann Kimmel and her husband Will as they passed through Berlin. Now, Ann Kimmel was at that time one of the most popular Christian women's speakers in America. The Lord really broke the mold after he made Ann Kimmel. She was a unique person. She'd meet total strangers, and she would try to minister to them by singing little improvised songs and sharing her faith. She was extremely sentimental and emotional. She could reduce a whole audience of Christian women to tears in just minutes. Well, as we were sitting around the table one day, I thought I'd try to learn some lessons from her experience. And so I said to her, "Ann, how do you prepare for your messages?" And she said, "Oh, I don't prepare." I was absolutely aghast. "You don't prepare?" I said. "No." I was just floored. Well, then what do you do?" "Oh, I just share my struggles." I couldn't believe it. Here I was killing myself in years of preparation for ministry, and she doesn't prepare. And yet, there was no denying the effectiveness of her ministry. She led thousands of people to Christ. She would even tell stories of how hard-boiled academics would be melted by her little songs and stories and come to Christ. And I thought to myself, why am I doing all this when all you've got to do is just share your struggles? Well, we returned to the United States that fall for a sabbatical at the University of Arizona in Tucson, where a former classmate lived. And I shared with him one day about my conversation with Ann and how it had really taken the wind out of my sails. And he said something to me that was very reassuring. He said, Bill, someday those people that Ann Kimmel has led to the Lord are going to need what you have to offer. And he was right. Emotions will carry you only so far. And then you're going to need something more substantive. As I speak in churches around the country, I frequently meet parents who come up to me after the service and say something like, oh, if only you'd been here 2 or 3 years ago, our son or our daughter had questions about the faith which no one in the church could answer, and now he's far from the Lord. It just breaks my heart to meet parents like this. A campus minister at Stanford University recently told me that 40% of the Christian students in high school youth groups will completely quit church involvement altogether after they graduate from high school. 40%. And it's not just that they lose their faith in a hostile university environment. Many of them have already secretly abandoned their faith while in the high school youth group, but they just continue to go through the motions until they're out from under their parents' authority. I think the church is really failing these kids. Instead of training them in the defense of Christianity's truth, we focus on emotional worship experiences, felt needs, and entertainment. It's no wonder that they become sitting ducks for that teacher or that professor who takes rational aim at their faith. In high school and college, students are intellectually assaulted with every manner of non-Christian philosophy, conjoined with an overwhelming relativism and skepticism. How dare we send them out unarmed into an intellectual battle zone? We've got to train our kids for war. Christian parents have got to do more than just take their children to church and read them Bible stories. Moms and dads need to be intellectually engaged themselves and be able to tell their children why we believe as we do, simply at first from an early age, and then with increasing depth as they grow older. Now, of course, this won't guarantee that your child will keep the faith. There are all kinds of moral and spiritual factors that come into play as well. But when you look at the arguments that ex-believers give for abandoning Christianity, you'll find that these reasons are often confused or weak. For example, I saw one website recently where the person explained, or provided a list of the books that had persuaded him to abandon his Christian faith, followed by the comment that he hopes to read them someday. Ironically, some of these folks come to embrace positions which are more extreme and require more gullibility, such as that Jesus never existed, than the conservative positions that they once held to. But while being intellectually equipped is no guarantee, still it can help.